Hey, good evening, TD and listeners. Good night, and viewers as well to this week in interview. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Interview with your host and guide, Anthony Drago. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And as you know, the last couple of weeks, and we continue to bring you coverage of Passportgate. And tonight we continue with that. We want to keep the focus on those who are running the CBI program in Dominica. We want to keep the focus on them and to let them know that they owe the people of Dominica accountability. They owe the people of Dominica a reports, as a matter of fact. And so we are here tonight to really just continue to let them know that we are going to stay on this issue until they respond. I have a few, tidbits we need to bring to really put it in perspective. Tonight, we are going to focus primarily on the, the responsibility, the requirement of government to produce reports. It's a fiduciary responsibility to produce reports. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to let the government know, let the people who run the program know that we know they owe us accountability. We know that any properly run program, any properly run enterprise, any properly run business has to take into account accountability and reporting. So stay tuned with me, grab your drink, share live, let everybody know that This Week in Interview is live. And as we always do on This Week in Interview, bringing you contemporary topics from a different angle, from a different perspective. So we're not just here to just bash and to cast aspersions and to judge. We're here to explain to you your right to know, your right to be informed, your right to receive reports. All right. So, as I said, share the live, let everybody know that we're here so we can have the most number of people who can hear this message. And we'll be right back. Yeah, so welcome back. Welcome back. I hope you had a chance to, in that little short break, make yourself comfortable. I also wanted you to grab your notebook and a pen because you know we're going to be giving you some good information. I may be joined later in the program by Mr. Alvin Thomas. He was here with us last
Can you see
week.
me?
Alvin,
Can
you're
you see me
with your
clearly?
mic. No, I'm not seeing you as yet. As I was saying, I don't want to say speaking of the devil, let's say speaking of the angel. I'm supposed to be joined by Mr. Alvin Thomas, and continuation of last week. Welcome, my brother. It's good to see you. I thought Atlanta traffic had you bogged down, but apparently you not even that can keep you away. So that's a good thing. But as I was saying
Nah,
to listeners, good night to you or my regular listeners. It's a joy to spend this time with you on a Wednesday night, every Wednesday night. Um, and you come back every Wednesday, and for that I am super appreciative. I don't take your time or your attention for granted. I know there's so many other things that you can be doing right at this moment, and I appreciate that you choose this speaking interview to spend the next hour, a little more than an hour sometimes, especially when we have Mr. Thomas on. We tend to go on. And for you, tonight is the first time you're listening to this speaking interview. Welcome to you. My intention is to let you have so much of a good time that you come back um, and become a regular listener as well. For those of you in Dominica, um, listening to us on RVR Jams Radio, Um, you know, good evening to you. RVR Jams carries this weekend interview live on DigiPlay channel 59. Also, Radio Online SBE in the Toronto market, primarily catering to the Haitian market. And because Dominicans are close brothers and sisters with the Haitians, Dominicans as well, we appreciate you carrying this week in interview live. You can find this week in interview on tdnradio.net. For those of you who may be doing some stuff that um, watching us would be a distraction, like if you're driving or if you're at work and you just have your earphone in your ears, tdnradio.net is there. Those that don't really do Facebook or prefer, as a matter of fact, a majority of our listeners tune in on tdntv.net. We're also on YouTube, TDN Network 1 on YouTube, on Instagram, on Roku, on all of them. There's a link on the screen, link tree, linktr.ee/TDN network. If you share that with anyone, once they click that link, it gives them the option to choose how they want to listen to this week in interview and TDN radio. So we continue our coverage of Passportgate, and about 3 weeks ago, the OCCRP, Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, released a series of reports on the Dominica Citizen by Investment Program. And in those reports, there were some pretty revealing stories about Dominica's CBI program, uh, concerning revelations as in a number of known criminals, people who have red flags on them from Interpol, are still being able to obtain Dominica passports and citizenship. We see that the EU released a report that estimated, that said that Dominica has sold 34,500 passports. And as part of that same report from the OCCRP, when they looked at the numbers that Parliament reported, um, it just seems like folks were just fudging stuff. For example, for 2 years in a row, they reported exactly the same number. Like someone copied and pasted from the last year and they forgot to change the numbers. Exactly the same number, down to the cents. So how is that possible? We also, just see that based on their best estimates, about 20,000 something passports seem not to be reported. So we're calling it Passport Gate. And then the idea of Passport Gate is that whenever there are uh, circumstances with people who run countries, with governments, with elected officials, with public officials, that point towards some sort of scandalous behavior, something that needs to be investigated further. And if what is suspected turns out to be true, there are significant consequences. It is given the suffix of gate. So Passport Gate is our own little Dominican, um, I don't want to call it a scandal as yet, but it has all the smell and songs and feel and appearance of a scandal. And so Passport Gate is our call for a more in-depth investigation, a more in-depth investigation into the Dominica CBI program. And the accountability. As a matter of fact, tonight, that is what I really want us to focus on, is the requirement by law that any money that is obtained for the public proceeds, require reporting, and not just reporting to go stand in parliament and just give out some numbers and mention some projects. Reporting as in audited financial statements, that anybody can take that report. If you are interested and you have the time, you can take that report, you can drill down to the final last passport that was sold in that time period, and trace back and see how the funds were spent, what projects were spent on, how much money was spent in each one of those projects, how those projects were organized. Was it because it's public money? The way in which contracts are awarded, the way in which work is supervised has to follow the rules of procurement, and it has to be transparent, has to be reported, has to be reportable, has to be traceable, has to be transparent. Accountability, basically, is what we want to highlight in tonight's coverage of Passport Gate. And if you look at the flyer, I said Passport Gate and then I said Prison Gate, because we know that if Passport Gate yields what it's pointing to, we would like to think that our judiciary system is still some faith left in it, that folks who may have, if it turns out that they've really misappropriated money, that there are consequences. Because folks, we are speaking about a lot of money. If the estimate is 20,000 passports are sold, and we'll average the price at 100,000 US dollars, that is a couple of $1 billion that's unaccounted for. Now, we're not making any accusations. What we are saying is that we don't know because no one is telling us. And there is a requirement for them to tell us. And not just tell us, they have to show us. They have to be able to open their books, and the books are supposed to be audited. And an auditor, an independent, impartial, and objective auditor, is supposed to look at those books and produce a report that the public can consume and come to their own conclusions. And those who are so inclined know where the information is, that they can go and dig a little deeper, a little further. They can dig into it and get all the details that they want to get. You know, when I was in Dominica, I used to be on a couple of committees and so on. One of them was the credit union, Rosa Credit Union. I was a member of the supervisory committee in the credit union. And every year there would be an annual general meeting at which the managers would have auditors come in, audit the books, and they would present the books, and members could ask questions, and every dollar would be accounted for. And that is the same thing we're talking about, that if you have a government or public program, that every year the losses, those accounts have to be accounted for. And when they are accounted, a professional is supposed to be able to take that report and vouch for its integrity. But not only that, a layperson like you and me is supposed to be able to take that report and see, oh, they sold 100,000, they sold 100 passports at $1,000 a piece, that yielded X amount of dollars. This is how it was distributed. So much went into fees. They did this project and that project. This is how much they spent on that project. They invested so much. It was lost in the stock market, whatever. But there has to be a certain level of accountability, a certain level of traceability. And so let me not leave my guests waiting for too long, but I want you to understand, my audience, what we talk about when we talk about Passport Gate, and why we think it is important enough to stay on it week after week after week after week. Because you know why? The government and the people who run the CBI program have not seen it fit to come to you and to say, fellow Dominicans, in light of the many allegations and revelations that have been floating around, we wish to clear the air. We hear all kind of numbers about number of passports that were sold. Here's the report. This is how many passports that were sold. This is the revenue that was collected. Those are the numbers of passports that you can, whatever it is. We have not heard not one peep. I think that is so, not only is it illegal, I think it is absolutely disrespectful and insulting to the people of Dominica, that all of these allegations are going around, and no, and the folks who are supposed to be running the program has not seen it fit to respond in any kind of way. In Dominica, people that say, they haven't even passed gas for you to smell. That is what they're doing to Dominicans, ignoring you totally when it is that it's your money and a significant amount of money that we are asking about. Alvin, I can rant on this all night, but I want to welcome you back and to tell you I really appreciate you taking time to come and spend some time with us and to help me to clear the air um, on Passportgate. So welcome. Give some opening remarks and let's start the discussion.
All right. Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Thank you very much again for having me on your program this evening on this weekend interview. It continues to be a pleasure to be a part of the conversation. And I think you have touched on several points here tonight that should be of, great concern and importance to us as Dominicans, whether we live in Dominica or out of Dominica. So I always look forward to that. In the final analysis, the purpose of this program, which I would imagine is one of information, to provide information to our listeners and those who have logged in into the program. But more than that, to spur them on to take appropriate course of action. It is all good to provide all of the information, the statistics, the dates, the numbers, and all that good stuff. But if at the end of the day, we are not moved to take action, and I know you sort of parallel that to Watergate in the United States, they took action. If one goes back and read through the history as to how the whole Watergate investigation and scandal came to fore, was because having obtained the information, having the information having been made available to the appropriate persons and authorities, action was taken. And that action, as we know, led to the stepping down or the resignation of the President of the United States. So it is my hope that some, in addition to just providing the information, that some action will be taken. Having said that, I agree with you entirely that in any democracy, there's what is referred to as good governance. And what is good governance? Good governance means accountability, transparency, responsibility required from our elected officials. So anyone who is elected to public office is expected to provide a certain level of accountability for what they do on our behalf, a certain level of transparency, how honest they are in their dealings with us as citizens and the other persons that they represent on our behalf, as well as responsibility. To him, much is given, much is expected, and therefore they have a responsibility, as you said. But I would like to even extend this a bit further, and there may be persons, both young and old, that might be saying, "Well, what does this thing have to do with me? I mean, you guys keep talking and running your mouth every week about CBI passport. I mean, that have nothing to do with me. I got my job. I'm working. I'm not getting as much as I would love to. Yes, things are a bit expensive in the supermarkets, and a young person might say, I would love to migrate once I graduate from my school because things are tough here. This CBI thing, I don't even know what that thing is all about, guys. You guys just talking, and all this thing you're giving me, bazude in me.
Hit in my head.
Yeah. So herein lies our responsibility now as persons in the media. And I would like, when I am presenting or whatever information I'm sharing, to present it in a manner that, as I say, both young and old, but most of our young people will get an understanding as to what is it we're talking about, this CBI. How does that non-disclosure that we're talking about, this non-accountability, this non-transparency, this not being responsible, how does that affect me? How does that impact me as a citizen of Dominica? Or is it just a question where Tony and Alvin and all these guys just want to run their mouth? So I think that is important. And what I hope I can do as part of this ongoing conversation this evening is to kind of relate that, try and bring it down as as to a level that, as I said, these persons can relate to it, and in so doing, to reference not just certain legislations to show how these may be in contempt of those legislation, but to relate it with stuff like their budget. We know in a government um, as ours and any of the governments in the region, they present to the parliament of which they're responsible. We elect them at the polls, we vote them in, and then they will, some of them, although last elections I didn't even see one, whether online or in print, some political parties will present what is called a manifesto. They'll say, come vote for me, come vote for me. Don't vote for Tony, vote for me. If you vote for me, I'm going to give you good health, I'm going to give you education, I'm going to give you the sky and the moon. And they put that in the form of a manifesto. And then they get elected into office, and they prepare what is called a budget, a plan. And that is done on an annual basis. And they present that to the parliament, and they say, well, okay, we're going to prioritize what we do. We maybe put more focus on agriculture, education, whatever. And that is going to cost us X amount of money to do that. So the hospital will have drugs, small businesses will be able to operate, the college, the State Farm College will get repaired, the state college, will get repaired, the schools will be built, the teachers will have their resources, whatever, we'll have hotels. All of this will reflect itself in the budget. And that's where the CBI comes in. So the CBI is what is referred to as a non-tax revenue for purposes of the budget and the Director of Audits accounting. It's called a non-tax revenue. So while you have in the budget or as running the country, you have taxes on domestic goods and consumption. You have VAT. You have taxes on international trade. You have income tax. You have license. People pay their license every day, so that's a tax. The registry, pay for a birth certificate, the stamp duty, all of this thing, transfer for land. Somebody buy land, there is transfer. These are revenues of taxes that the government collects to do the things that they say they're going to do in the budget. Now, the CBI is also another form of revenue that is collected, referred to as a non-tax revenue. And that is where now the man, the young and the young have to see the correlation. And what we have seen is that based on the reporting that came from the investigators, it is showing that, hey, we should have collected, let's say, for a number's sake, $1.4 billion. But in terms of what is being reported in our budget, or even what is being audited in our auditor's report, does not come anywhere close to that revenue. So it means, therefore, as we speak right now, Tony, the Dominica State College is still in a state of disrepair after 6 years of Hurricane Maria. So you see the young person who is listening now, where it impacts you, you are now being forced into a learning environment that is not conducive for learning because the toilets are not functioning properly. The roof is not working. The classroom does not have chalk and computers. The public library is not repaired. Whereas all of those items could have been taking place from that money. So you see where it affects you. You, the young person, been waiting to get a job. You can't get a job because the private sector, the economy is not buoyant. So I have a list there that shows 125 businesses were closed. One of
Wow.
those businesses happened to be, let's say, Bellows, because the government didn't divert or create what is called a facilitating environment so that the small manufacturer can operate and employ a young person. So that's why you don't have a job, because the CBI money didn't go into that. So herein lies the question we have to ask: Well, where did the money go? And if we're saying, and if the EU is saying you most likely sold X amount of passport, you're right.
34,500.
You're right.
Yes.
They have an obligation and a responsibility. We're not asking them to do us a favor. They are operating on behalf of the Dominican people. So another question was, if I want to answer, I'll answer. I don't have to. They are obligated. And let me go back again, just by concluding my opening comments. And we need to refer to that repeatedly. The government of St. Lucia, who's also in a CBI program, okay? They came in long after us. They have what is called an annual report. They have it's called a CIP, Citizen by Investment, and they produce an annual report every year.
Yeah.
The most current one is for 21-22. So a St. Lucian can pick up that report, and it's a detailed report. It's a report with, it starts off with 30 pages, which just speaks of the revenues, the project, the organizational chart, blah, 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 grants denied, delay for cause, a whole bunch of stuff in there. And then now it starts off on another 16 pages, right? 16 pages of what is referred to as financial statements. So those statements are statements presented to an auditor who looked at it and who said, well, okay, this is what you collect, this is what the balance sheets look like, this is what the cash flow look like, and you can go through it line by line. That's what St. Lucia does. So what is so different to ours that we can do that? And that's why I would hope, and maybe there are some pundits of the Dominican Labour Party listening, I would have hoped that some of them or one of them would come as a guest on your show.
Well, you say that, but we did invite one of
Really?
their main
You
pundits,
invited one?
and he was the ideal. In
Oh,
fact,
how come you didn't tell me that? Why you?
he invited himself, Alvin, and
Oh, really?
and he was the perfect person because he was the former Auditor General of the government.
You talking about Mr. Christian?
Mr. Christian invited
Darren
himself onto
Christian?
the program,
Oh
and
my God.
I confirmed his invitation
That
that for tonight. He said he would come and he would interact with you. Um,
that would have
but
made for an interesting
I made
conversation.
for an
I'd love
interesting
to.
conversation. And he could have provided answers in terms of what we're talking about. Why are there no reports?
So
But as everything would have it, as young people would say, he ghosted on me. I guess when he took the temperature of the kitchen, it was too hot for him, so he backed out. Or else the person who he is always carrying water for did not give
tell
him
him
permission.
don't go there.
He cannot come on
He
TDN.
might have not gotten the clearance,
He
so
might
he
not have
can't speak.
gotten
He didn't get
the okay.
clearance.
Yeah, because
Now,
and that is another thing that happens in an environment like what is in Dominica, where you have no accountability, because then the monies can be used for nefarious practices such as having leverage to control what people can and cannot do. Because you now have this chest of money that should belong to the public. You have access to it, that you can spend it how you want, because at the end of the day, you are not producing a report that give account for how every dollar was spent. So you tend to, you tend to be less careful as to making sure that anything that it is spent on is legitimate and defensible. Because if I know I have to give you account for what I do with your property, I'm going to make sure that I'm careful. That when I
absolutely.
give you the report, you don't ask me, but Tony, what was going through your mind when you decided to use my property to do X, Y, and Z? But if I know Alvin is a partner that don't, yeah, Alvin okay. Then I can just do whatever I want. When Alvin come, I tell him, I had $100, but I was hungry, man, so I just spent it. You
And
know?
let me say something while I was just concluding on
Mm-hmm.
the report.
Mm-hmm.
In parallel to what I spoke with respect to the St. Lucia's report, if you go under the Citizens My Investment for Dominica, their website, there is a report done by Price Price Waterhouse Coopers.
Mm-hmm.
That report was done. It's dated 19th August 2019. That's the
Mm-hmm.
last one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 20-page report. And all that report does is to just speak about the program.
You
The
mean there are no
housing,
financial statements?
nothing, zero. The report doesn't even indicate during a specific period, well, X amount was collected by way of revenue. Okay. Now, there is what we will discuss a little later. Um, Two aspects to the program. Well, several aspects. It's kind of muddy,
Mm-hmm.
but just to say that there is what is called an escrow account that is set up to put funds that they refer to as investment funds. So an investor wants to get into some hotel investment project that is specified by the government, that goes in an escrow. But then the other EDF or development fund, the economic development fund account, they claim that is where the monies go that would maybe show itself in the consolidated fund that goes towards other
The Dominica
development.
Treasury is what you mean when you say consolidated
Right,
fund. Okay.
absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
at the National Bank. But
Mm-hmm.
this Price Waterhouse Coopers report, which, as I said, is dated 19th of August 2019, doesn't have any numbers, nothing, zero, nada, to say, well, okay, guys, under the housing, there is an area, it says there, um, I'm just trying to get a reference. It has an overview of the government of Dominica about the citizen by investment, and it goes on to describe the projects, the role of the CBI government. There's a section that speaks to the role of the CBI program in government expenditure. That's the subheading. Okay, the role of the CBIP, which is the Cinema Investment Program, in government's expenditure. But nowhere there does it indicate, well, X amount was received and X amount was expended towards A, B, or C. Okay, in terms of receipts. And I'm saying all of this to say, Tony, and to our listeners, that is troubling. And like you said, one would expect that if those, for now, we call them allegation, quote unquote, are being said about the program, we, in order to show some credibility, the government and respect to us as a citizen should have by now come out and say, you know what, guys, I mean, I hear all this stuff being talked and bandied about the program, and that is inaccurate. This is what the program has done over the years. This is what we have collected from the program. This is how the money is expended, and go on to give an explanation. And I will tell you in a minute as the discussion continues. I'm going to reference you three different budget addresses. Three.
Mm-hmm.
2021, 2020, 21, 22, 22, 23, and 23, 24. And I will reference you the comments
Oh,
that we
so
made.
you mean the numbers that we're looking for are in there? Okay.
No, they're not. They're not. No, 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 no. They're not. They're not there. But what I will say
I
to
thought you
you,
were saying that
no,
that
no, no,
was
no, no, no,
that.
no, no. Far from that. Far from
Apart from
that.
that.
What I will say to you in terms of comment on the CBI, because in the
Don't go into it yet. I think we
no, no,
pushing
no,
up
I'm not
against
going
our
into it yet.
we
I'm
pushing
not
up
going into
against
it
our
yet.
commercial break. So
Sure,
yeah.
sure. And I will also reference you the Director of Audit's report, of which Mr. Christian was the former Director of Audit. And I would have loved to have him here this evening so he could tell us, the Dominican people, what did he do or what work did he conducted in relation to the CBI as far as reporting. Whatever aspect of it he can report on.
Right.
He may not be able to report on all of it, as I said, because he got an escrow account. That and that is for another discussion. That does not reflect itself, or the claim does not belong to the consolidated fund, in which case the director for it is not mandated to look at that. But that's something else we can have a conversation on, because just so the listeners know, I have an auditing background too. I worked in the audit department before Mr. Christian. I work with people like Ozzy Lewis, Sybil Baron, Gorman Robin, to name a few, Carol Chambers. We worked in audit. For many, many years, I worked in the audit. So I have a good understanding of what entails in terms of auditing of government account. So the 2020, the Director of audit account that ended 30th June 2020, and the one that ended the 30th of June 2020, 2021, they have not had a 2022 since, to the best of my knowledge. I will share with you
and
some.
we're about to finish 2023. So Alvin,
Absolutely.
thank you for this opening remark. I think it sets the stage for what we want to discuss,
I
which
didn't
is
mean to be.
really
I didn't mean to be that long, but I
no, no,
just
no,
wanted to put it in
no, no.
context.
This is good, because what we're saying tonight is that the government owes the people of Dominica by law reports, and not just any report where it's just stories or whatever. Reports that have financial statements that will pass the test of an auditor, that will be able to vouch for the validity of the data that's in those reports. And so, folks, that is what we're talking about. That's why we call it Passportgate, because you know how are you going to really recapture all of the transactions that happened in the CBI program in the last 7 years, 8 years, 9 years? Because if the last report you have is from 2019 and there are no financials in there, where are the financial statements for the CBI program? Those are the questions that we're asking, and those are the questions that we want answers to. Those are the questions that we know the government owe us answers for. And Alvin was explaining to you how it's relevant to you. You know, we still have temporary bridges in Dominica from since Tropical Storm Erica 7 years ago. But in a time when the government has access to billions of dollars, and in addition to that, the public debt in Dominica has increased by a significant amount. And when you hear the folks who want to defend the indefensible, they say, oh, where do you think all the money that we used to recover from the storms came from? Oh, where
I,
do you think, no, hold on, Alvin, because we go
mhm,
to a break. But
mhm.
where do you think this came from? Where do you think the money for the housing comes from? Okay, let's assume that that is true. Show us the numbers. Show us the books. That's all. We're not disputing with you as yet that the money wasn't spent here, there, and there, wherever you claim. But we're saying respect us, stop insulting us by telling us, okay, boss, you want to know what happened? We collected $1 billion, but it cost us $1.2 billion to do repairs after this storm. It cost us $500 million to do housing. And here are the numbers. And you can break it down to the last dollar. That's all we're saying. But instead, you know what's happening? Folks who are not elected. And if you're not elected, you don't owe anybody an explanation. I saw they had a program on Tuesday and had people like Sam Raphael and Tony Astafans on there trying to talk about, has the CBI program been beneficial to the Dominican economy? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about where are the reports that says what is done with the money. You know what they're doing? You know, there's this joke that we tell about this guy. He was working on a car in his garage. It was getting dark, and he dropped a bolt and a nut, and he went under the lamppost to look for it because that's where the light is. Never mind that the bolt was dropped in the garage. You go under the lamppost and look for the bolt because that's where the light is. That is what these people are doing. We're asking for accountability and reports, but they cannot touch that because there is dark. They're coming, oh, has the CBI program been beneficial to Dominica? And we can talk about whether it's been beneficial or not, because I have my own opinions on that. But we're pushing hard against a commercial break. We've gone past it. So let's get a word from
All
our
right.
sponsors.
Okay.
When we come back, we're going to
All
open
right.
with a little recording from someone from another island, but I think he explains quite nicely the expectation of accountability of a government to its people. And then Alvin will continue our discussion. Stay tuned, listeners.
Absolutely.
It's just getting warm.
Presented by.
People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
How much Dominican history do you know? Want to learn some fun facts? We have a great and fun way to test your knowledge and learn more about our history. Get your copy of Dominic Anu, Dominica in Puzzle. Fun for the whole family. Available now on Amazon.com. Visit pushpast10.com to learn more. Email us at dominicainpuzzle@gmail.com or call 877-698-9894. Looking to promote your business, engage current customers, and reach new people? Well, look no further. From the basic presentation to a fully fledged advertisement, use your video ads to attract customers. At Man's Audiovisual Productions, we do just that. We produce videos for business and event promotions, product demo videos, animated explainer videos, fundraiser ads, and much, much more. Engage your clients and sell online. We customize the video to match your brand design. Guaranteed to play flawless on all devices, including smart TVs. Contact us at telephone number 203-690-4342 or 767-245-6238. Visit our website, mansaudiovisual.com, or email us at derekvideo@gmail.com.
Everyone say thank you to our sponsors. Welcome back after the break. As I said, when we're going to start this new segment, by just playing some clips I got from a little recording by this guy named Dwyer Astafan. He's from St. Kitts and Nevis, and he normally, will release little voice notes giving commentary on social stuff happening in St. Kitts. And even if it's in St. Kitts, I thought what he was talking about gives a good example and also illustrates that what we're doing and what we're asking for is not crazy. It's what is supposed to be the norm. We are supposed to get reports. So let's play a couple of those clips, and then we'll rejoin the conversation.
Now, what follows here is not and must not be interpreted to be an attack on anybody's integrity. What we are looking at here are transactions in the public sector, transactions about which we, the members of the public, the taxpayers of this country, need to be assured that we are fully and properly informed as to substance and process. And these are transactions which we must be 100% convinced are executed at the highest level of efficiency and transparency. And our political leaders themselves declared ardent promoters of transparency and good governance. Indeed, they flew into office on the wings of transparency and good governance. They should welcome this new era of an inquiring, even demanding public. After all, it's our money, our resources.
So it's our money.
Campus. Now, what follows here is not and must not be interpreted to be an attack on anybody's integrity.
We're repeating, yeah. So what he's saying is that it is the people's money. It is the people's resources that's being spent. And therefore, the people have a right to ask questions. And by asking questions and asking for accountability, you're not attacking, anybody's integrity. It's not an accusation. It's not a suggestion that there's wrongdoing. It is simple a demand as required by law for accountability. And that's what we're asking for, reports and accountability that does not insult the intelligence of the Dominican people, that does not disrespect the integrity, the knowledge of the Dominican people. And he said, your report should have substance and it should show a process that is transparent and accountable. There's a couple of other clips I'm rolling.
Ask now. So is what the government doing here the best way to spend $5 million of your money? Is the money reaching the right people and enough people? Is this the most efficient, reasonable and just way to go? Are the contractors, the truckers and so forth, and the citizens of this country getting the best bang for their buck? Have we cleaned up the procurement process, or are we waiting for better legislation? If the latter, don't we know that good legislation is meaningless if it is not administered transparently and justly? And similarly, bad legislation can never be used as an excuse for bad-mindedness. It is more the character of the people that determines right and wrong than what is written in law and regulation.
Again, that's why when I got that clip, I decided it was perfect to demonstrate what we were talking about. Because some people say, well, it's the law, it's not the law, whatever it is. What I would say is that even if a legislature is not properly written, if you take advantage of it, it's because your character is not what is supposed to be the character of somebody who is in public service. And if you have good legislature, it's supposed to be enforced. So if the government went to parliament and the government passed laws that allows them to have an escrow account outside of the country, that's not in the purview of the director of audit, and it shouldn't be, it doesn't require auditing and all of that. That's bad legislature, in my opinion. But how do you use that bad legislature? To cast darkness, to say, well, I don't have to report to you because there's legislature that says that I don't have to. But it's legislature that you passed. When you had the majority in government, you passed the legislature. So anything you do hiding behind that legislature doesn't make it right. Do you know that when our ancestors were enslaved, slavery was not illegal? By law, they could enslave our people. Does that mean that what they did was right because, they were complying with the law at the time? No. Bad legislature just gives people with bad intentions and bad character a means to get by at the moment. But it is wrong, and of course, it has to be challenged. Run the next one, Sam.
I cannot overemphasize the importance of freedom of information and the sacred commitment made by the present administration to provide the highest level of good governance and accountability to the people of this country, and to project the image regionally and globally of a country that is run on the strong foundation of good governance, transparency, accountability. And as we discuss projects, What's the latest on these smart houses? Does the gentleman, I think he's a Trini gentleman, have the means to deliver on this contract?
So, good governance, accountability, transparency, as it appears to our partners in the region and globally. How does somebody want to say, okay, I can invest in Dominica if when they look at the landscape in Dominica, it doesn't seem as though it is ruled by the rule of law? It doesn't seem to have an independent court system where if something happens and you are aggrieved, I have a fair chance of taking you to court and getting redress for what happens. Even if I lose, at least I know there's an opportunity to do that. When someone perceives that the country is run based on the mood and the fancy of an individual or a few individuals, it doesn't attract anyone who has, except it will attract people that will line with Alibaba, but it wouldn't attract anybody of integrity to want to come to do business in your country because there's not a system in place for redress, for arbitration, for taking care of grievances. I think there's one last segment I want to run.
Must be consumers and employees, but not providers and owners in our own land must be rejected forever, robustly and mightily. And that colonial paradigm succeeds only if there is a collusion between foreign exploiters and local traitors. And as I end, still speaking of good governance and transparency, a surgical examination needs to be launched into the complaints about years-long stealing and other corruption in government entities such as statutory corporations, security agencies, revenue agencies, and across the board, and about the slackness and the extent of underproductivity in the public sector, with people going and coming as the like, not putting in their daily work that they're being paid for by the people, and so on and so on. Cleaning up is urgently needed. I wish respectfully to remind the present administration that they hold 6 of 11 seats, a razor-thin majority, and failure to deliver on their promise to clean up this country, a promise which we the voters accepted and entered into a contract with them, offer, promise, and acceptance of the promise. Instead of leading us to El Dorado, they could cause us to return to the days of El Diablo if the cleaning up is not going to proceed urgently and intensely. My young friend Dr. Drew will remember that I spoke out and declared that after Robert Bradshaw, he could be the next great and consequential leader of this country. And I'm calling on him for the sake of the nation and for the sake of his own legacy as the leader of the country to ensure that we are led to El Dorado and not back to El Diablo. Thank you.
So do you think our current leadership has led us towards El Dorado, or are we in the realm of El Diablo? The clip also mentioned to colonialism, which is what I also had in my flyer. In my definition, colonialism is where the resources of the country are not being used for the benefit of the people of the country, but the wealth of the country is extracted and exported overseas, where foreigners, whether they reside in the country or outside, are getting more benefit from the resources of the country than the people of the country. Does that ring a bell in terms of our perception of the CBI program? That the revenue from the CBI program seems to be benefiting foreigners much more than it is benefiting the people of Dominica. That is the definition of colonialism. Are we being colonized, led by one of ours in terms of the current administration? Let us make sure that we hold these people accountable, because when the head is not accountable, it filters all the way down. I was looking at a video of Castlebrus where they showed some rain that fell recently, and there's some road works that's going on, and the amount of tarish and sediments that run off the road, it even entered people's homes, and you wonder who is supervising those projects. And so I wanted to play those clips because, for one, I wanted it to illustrate that when we ask questions, we're not trying to denigrate anybody's integrity. We are simply asking questions that we are entitled to ask questions. We are entitled to expect good governance. We're expected to to have accountability of how the public money is spent, and we expect a high level of transparency and accountability. I mean, I know this was a little long, but I really think that it is quite relevant to what we are trying to get across to this. I wanted to
No,
play that.
absolutely, absolutely, Tony. I think it was quite relevant, and I made a few notes as the clips were playing. For example, where he says that um, the character of the people um, that determines what is right from wrong. And like you said, if a particular legislation is crafted in a manner that it is wrong, then it boils down to the character for leaders to ensure that proper legislations are enacted to provide for a better accountability and transparency in government. But what is so fundamental as well, Tony, and our listeners, our constitution, when we got that constitution back in 1978, when we brought down the Union Jack and we brought up our flag and we say we become a quote unquote independent country, it never in the wildest dream envisaged something as called a CBI program. Using our citizenship as a means of raising revenue for the management of a country. That was something that was never envisaged. Never. Never. I mean, countries would find a way of generating exports, bananas, lime, copra, bay oil, water, whatever it is that is necessary, and in so doing, spend accordingly. So that was never envisaged. So that what make this thing even more alarming, because what it does, as we just celebrated or observed, if I'm not sure which one to call it, 45 years of quote unquote independence, national sovereignty. And that's where the CBI touches on that, the passport, the fact that we are exchanging our citizenship for an investment of our monies, touches on what is could be our national sovereignty as a nation. So national sovereignty and self-reliance are very, very important for a country. And as far as national sovereignty is concerned, it calls on leaders not to sell the people's right, which is what they're doing by this passport, by selling 40,000 and 34,000. That's your right as a citizen. Do you know that this investor, quote unquote investor, foreigner, who now becomes a Dominican citizenship, who happen to be an Iranian or Syrian or Jordanian or whatever, have same right as you, Tony? This act, this Alien Landholding Act that our dear ancestor, our dear Edward Oliver LeBlanc put into law, so that a foreigner would not just come by and grab up all. We have what is called an Alien Landholding Act. So no foreigner could just come and buy up Dominica and say, well, you know what, I have a deep pocket, so I can buy. That was the purpose I was there. And you're saying now that Iranian guy who pays X amount for his passport can just come and buy land.
Yep. And he, not only that,
He's
his
a
children,
Dominican, he can
his,
vote, buy land,
his,
no
he,
restriction.
and his citizenship passed down to his descendants.
Yes. So do you understand what we are involved in, my boy? This man can come and he has no restriction. He's a citizen of Dominica. He could buy as many acres of land he wants. He can vote in an election. I mean, once he stay on middle, all of these apply to him.
But I've been paused there for a minute just to let that sink in, because we mentioned it. If someone purchases a Dominican passport, it says that their children are also automatically Dominican. So So if Dominica's population is 71,000 and you sell 40,000 passports or 30,000 passports, and 20 of those 30,000, each of them have 2 kids, just 2. That is 40 plus the 30 you sell, that is 70,000, you know.
And they can buy land.
And by the next generation, they have surpassed the natural born people of the country, you know.
They
I don't
can
know,
buy our land.
not only buy
Do you
land,
know
as
how?
in they can come down and vote. They can, they have
Yes.
every right. And so in the next, I don't know what, 20 years, it's conceivable, since most of the passports are sold in Eastern Europe and Asia, that there will be more Asian and Eastern European Dominicans than there are Dominicans living in Dominica.
So our EO labeler must be turning in his grave to hear something like that is happening in Dominica. And just to go back again on this whole concept of national sovereignty, it is not to allow our country, Dominica, to be ripped up and ripped by foreign investors, which is what that is doing. We are being ripped and ripped by foreign investors. National sovereignty call on leaders to reject bribery. That's what national sovereignty calls on. National sovereignty calls on leaders not to use public funding to make investment overseas while your constituents are barely making enough money to buy medicine, school fees, and so on. And then I mentioned the whole question of self-reliance. Self-reliance means embarking on a massive program of empowering our people to get involved in small and medium-scale economic and social and socio-economic activities. We see what's happening with the Chinese influence and the hotels and developments. Dominicans are not engaged in freelance. This is the issue at hand. That's the issue at hand. But let me just share some information, Tony, with our listeners. You did tell them get pen and paper. I hope they have that ready.
And I also want to encourage them to join the discussion and make their comments and so on. We'll take some of the comments live. So go ahead and let us know what you think about what we're discussing.
So you did mention some earlier that imagine after Storm Erica, the Castlebluff situation. Okay, the government is always quick, very quick, to say, well, the money was spent there. We are unfortunate because we are prone to natural disaster. We get hurricane every year, and therefore, as a result of that, we're not able to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to give you data that I was pulled up from the World Bank and what is called the Emergency Events Database. It's the www.emdat.be. If you go there, you could see some of that information. And the World Bank also have information on that. Antigua, I'm going to use Antigua as an example compared to Dominica. Antigua, in 1995, Antigua had Hurricane Louis. In 1995, Hurricane Louis damaged, the monetary damage to Antigua was $494 million. That's US, yeah? US. Economic loss was $347 million. That's in 1995. You there? I went down for a while. Are you there? You hearing me?
You're having some little trouble with your connection, I think.
Okay. That same year, Louis, for Dominica, the damage was 47 million. You hear the damage? 47. Antigua was 494 million. Write that down. In 1998, Antigua had Hurricane Georges. 1998. The damage was $620 million. The economic was $200 million. That year we did not have. In 1999, Antigua had two hurricanes. They had Hurricane Jose and Hurricane Lenny. And the economic loss was 247 million. Damage was 652 million. That same year, we had Hurricane Lenny as well. Our damage was $27.78 million in damage. We have no data for the economic loss. Like everything else, we never have data. In 2007, we had Hurricane Dean. 2007, Hurricane Dean, damage $60 million. In 2008, Antigua had Hurricane Oma, $47 million economic loss, $1.4 billion in damage. In 2010, Antigua had Hurricane Earl, damage $1.1 billion, economic loss 52 million. In 2011, we had Tropical Storm Ophelia, no data. In 2015, we had Tropical Storm Erica, 79.56 million economic loss. Damage, 403 million 0.28. That's for Dominica. That's 2015. In 2017, Antigua had Hurricane Irma and Maria. They had both.
Breaking up a little bit again.
Economically 18 damage, $136.1 million. That same year, Dominica had Hurricane Maria. Economic loss, 382 million. Damage, $931 million. So you see the extent of the damage and economic loss that Antigua had as compared with Dominica. And yet, Antigua GDP per capita is way above us. Their debt to GDP ratio is way below us. And they also have a CBI program. So you see what I'm talking about, Tony?
And that's what that's what we're talking about tonight, Alvin. And I believe that one of the biggest issues why we have a difference.
Why I would have loved to have Mr. Christian here.
Alvin, no, yes. I was saying that one of the big issues is that in Dominica, the government gets away with not reporting.
Absolutely.
And what you don't inspect doesn't get respected. And so because
I made reference to that in his clip.
Yeah.
I reference that information.
If they had to give account, they would be more judicious with how they spend the money. They would want to be able to show evidence. But when they don't have to report, they can do whatever they want or don't do whatever they want. And that is why tonight the focus is on accountability and reporting. It is so critical. Absolutely. It might seem like we're just talking, but it's not that. It filters back to everything. Because if someone doesn't have to give you a report, if your loved one is in the hospital and you go and visit your loved one and the nurses and doctors are obligated to give you a report, they don't care what they do for the day. But if they know your relative is going to come in the evening and ask, how was the day, whatever, and not only ask, somebody has to pull the notes and give an account of how the day went, don't you think that they will treat your patient better, your family better?
Absolutely.
Reporting is everything.
Absolutely.
Alvin, thank you so much for all of those numbers that you brought.
I deliberately did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they are quick to jump on a natural disaster and say, "Oh, we had a natural disaster." You're not the only one having natural disaster. I also have information for St. Kitts and St. Lucia and Grenada, but I didn't even go into that. I just decided to compare Antigua and Dominica, and it shows that they have had disaster too. But at least, I'm not against suggesting that they're perfect, but they were able to manage your resources in a manner that translates to the benefits of the citizens of Antigua, both young and old, to the
Right.
extent where a lot of our young people migrate to Antigua to make a living for themselves. We maybe have at least, I would say, 20,000 or more Dominicans living and working in Antigua,
Wow.
you know? So it's important to make those correlations. So as I said earlier, the young people can see this thing, not just us just talking and saying, well, this CBI thing is a little too much for me. It's above my head. It's above my pay grade. But to bring it down, to see how it impact their lives, their day-to-day lives, that if these monies were better accounted for and allowed to get into the economic activities of the country, like they're doing in Antigua, like they're doing in St. Kitts. And look at the St. Kitts clips that you played with Dwyer. As I pointed out on last week's program, St. Kitts uh, public debt to GDP ratio is 60 something percent,
Exactly.
60. The direct, and yet Dwyer is not even taking comfort in that and say, well, okay, the debt is so much, so be it. I mean, Dominica had a $1.6 billion debt as reported in the Director of Audit's last report, 1.6 billion. Our debt to GDP ratio last year, 2022, was 98.53, almost GDP. The year before that, in 2021, it was 107.21. So here we are supposedly selling passport, making a lot of money, but yet we are in serious debt,
The money
owing
is not making
persons
it to the
international and
people.
domestic. Exactly. So not just that it's not making its way into economic activities to spur the economy, but it's also not being used to service our debt. And that was one of the
Right.
concerns raised in one of the budgets that I mentioned, that they said that they would use part of the CBI revenue to pay down their debt. But instead for our debts to be going down, it's going up.
It's
In
going up.
2020, it was 113.07% of GDP. These are IMF figures. What I'm giving you there, those percentages I'm giving you there, is sourced from the IMF, World Bank. These are not numbers I'm just making up in my mind, in my head. In 2019, it was 98.25. So our debt is up there. We are owing a lot of persons.
Yes, in an era when they are generating
Okay.
billions of
And
dollars, they are
go ahead.
operating the country. They are operating the country at a loss. Basically, to put it in good, they
Yes.
are running a deficit,
Yes.
and in a time when they are generating billions of dollars, and we don't
Revenue.
know, and I would hazard a guess that that is probably why we don't have reports, because
Absolutely.
the reports would reveal all of those malgovernance. And that is why we should have reports. That's why we must demand reports, because the reports will paint the true picture. And all of those folks who is just a story or just a what, they can see the numbers in front of them. And the folks, you want to be able to have the people who are responsible stand in front of you, present a report, and be able to defend that report, be able to justify their performance as told in the report that's in front of you. And it's not stories, it's actual numbers that show what was earned, how it was spent, how well you manage the operations of the country. And so what we are doing is actually being patriotic. What we are doing is actually being good citizens of the country by demanding that the government be accountable. Does anybody think that the clips that I played from Dwyer Astafans make him a bad citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis because he is questioning certain transactions that happen, that he is demanding transparency and good governance? No, I don't think any of you would think that he is a bad citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis, or that he is bringing down the country or that he's airing dirty laundry. No. People think that what he's doing is honorable because he's holding the government to account. Why should it be different for Dominica? Why is it that there are all of these revelations and all we get is a few people that go on their friendly radio stations? They are not elected officials, so therefore they don't owe you any sort of fiduciary responsibility. They don't owe you any kind of accountability because they were not elected. Who owes us an explanation are the people we elect and the people who are paid to run our affairs. So when we talk about accountability, they come and say, oh, the CBI is beneficial to this and beneficial to that, is beneficial to the economy. That is not the argument. Let us get the reports. After we get the reports, we can make judgment as to how beneficial it is or how we can do better. Until we get those reports, every other discussion that we have about whether it's beneficial, whether it's relevant or not, is mute. We demand a report, we demand accountability.
Tony, let me show you something again. There's this document. This document is a document titled Debt Management Performance Assessment, DEMPA of Dominica. It's dated August the 18th by the World Bank Group. And that was the World Bank and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB. They undertook what is called a comprehensive assessment of the debt management functions of the government of Dominica from June 18 to 22nd, 2018. That was the last project they did, okay? And under the executive summary of that, here's some of the comments that were made. Under the area that deals with governance and strategy development, it says there, among other things, however, authorization to issue bonds in the regional market are not clearly defined. The legal framework is fragmented and does not include borrowing purposes. However, it goes on to say in the end, both documents have not been approved or published under the question of governance. Under the area that deals with coordination and macroeconomic policies, it says there, reasonably reliable debt service forecasts are produced by the DMU, that is the Debt Management Unit of Dominica. But in-house debt sustainability analysis is not undertaken. So there is no analysis being done of the debt being undertaken. Cash flow are forecasted on a monthly basis, but not submitted to the ECCB for liquidity management purposes. We're talking about debts there. That's the way we are managing our resources. So we are jacking up the debt. We're now almost 100% of debt to GDP ratio.
We're more than 100%. Last year it was 104%, isn't it?
Yeah. We're getting CBI money. We're not paying down the debt. And the money is not going into the economy. And you say to me as a citizen of Dominica that I should not raise an issue, that I'm just talking for the sake of talking. It's right there, Tony. I mean, a comprehensive, there is a grading scale that is given. You can get from a A, a B, a C, or a D. There are 14 different areas. Some areas has like 2 different areas. So for example, you might have DPI, which is the debt performance indicator. You might have, let's say, on the item 7.3 subheading. Dominica got a D in almost everyone. Not a B or a C, I tell you. They didn't even qualify for an A or a B. They barely scrape a C in 1-2 areas, and everywhere else was a D.
They got no A's.
No A's.
No B's.
No B's.
They got a few C's.
They got maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 C's. They got,
Wow.
I'm sorry, They got 1A where it says debt record completeness and timeliness. They got that 1A. They got 4 C's, and they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 D's.
Well, what was the letter below D?
Below D, they don't have anything. They grade it from
A to
an
D.
A, B, C, or a D. So D
we
is
don't,
the last kakarot.
So we don't even know if it was possible we would get less than a D.
Yes, and that report is a document, official document, and it tells you, Tony, it tells you there. It says in the last part of the executive summary where it speaks of debt recording and operational risk management. The DMU has developed a draft procedure manual but does not cover all DEM procedure, and it has not been finalized. The DMU staff capacity is not sufficient, and the work is not organized with adequate segregation of duties.
Wow.
Debt management, they're talking about debt.
Wow.
How you manage your debt as a country. And this report is a shameful and striking report. And I will say to you, yes, that was done in 2018. I would
it's probably
bet
worse
my
now.
salary that most, if not all, of the recommendations that have not been implemented. I mean, it is mind-boggling. So when some of these pundits come on their station and talks all this nonsense about, well, we're just talking and saying stuff, this is the reality. This is the reality. This is the reality.
Wow. I know this is very sobering, Alvin. It makes your eyes pop, and really makes your brain, go into overdrive and wonder what's happening in Dominica. I mean, the picture that we're painting, and it's not because we are pessimistic, but we're painting a picture where we have more people who are not naturally born Dominicans about to have our passports more than naturally born. Because if the government sold 40,000 passports and their descendants are qualified, each of them have 2. In the next 10 years, there's more people outside who bought citizenship than people who have it by natural birth. 2, our debt is out of control. 3, we have a government that doesn't feel any sense of responsibility or accountability to the people. We have a situation where our infrastructure is falling apart. Every time we get some rain, you see a bridge getting washed away, a road getting washed away. It's just horrible. What are we doing in Dominica? As we said at the start of the program, the concept of this week in interview is to bring you information. But not just to bring you information, is to help you to decide on a course of action, to motivate you to do something about it. And if that picture that we are painting is not dire enough to make you commit that you want to do and you have to do something about the condition, let us start by demanding reports.
Let me just refer to one other very important
last one
area.
Because we have to wrap up.
But that is important because as we said earlier, and I'm sure at our next discussion we'll go into the legal aspect of it, because some of the pundits are saying, well, the government don't have to report, the money goes in an escrow, and that is not government money, so government don't want to tell you whatever, and some going to consolidate it, but that is very vague. But Dwyer spoke about legislation, and we kind of referenced it earlier. Here's what this debt management report says on the area of performance indicator assessment. Again, governance and strategy, the legal framework. And by legal framework, the existence, coverage, and content of the legal framework for authorization to borrow, undertake other DEM activity, and issue loan guarantees. They got a D in that. But here what the report says. The Finance Administration Act 1994, which is the act under which the CBI, they said they can create what is called a special fund to put as a result of the escrow. It says there the Finance Administration Act 1994 provides for control and management of public funds. You hear that word, Tony? Control and management of public funds that are raised and received for the purpose of the government. Okay? And then it says further, on public debt, the act refers to Order General or Specific Loans Act for authority to borrow or to issue guarantees. And they refer to Section 36 and 37 of the Act. Section 36.1 specifies the use of overdraft as means of borrowing. It goes on to say the limit of outstanding overdraft is prescribed annually by a resolution of the House of Assembly. Due to a constrained cash position, the government is often in breach of the limit. You hear this word? Due to constrained cash position, the government is often in breach. So they're going contrary to the laws, and they got a D.
Okay. Like I said, if there was a letter lower than,
we need to spend a program on that, you know.
If there was a letter lower than D, they would have that letter.
So I want these pundits to come around and say to me what I'm saying is just talk. Where are my facts? And that is a World Bank ECCB report, and it's a very extensive report. 20 almost 30 something pages, quite detailed, all aspects. So we'll spend some time on that at some point. But there is a correlation to that and the CBI because it talks about public funds. So they're not managing the funds that are coming in properly. They're not managing their debt properly. They're bringing up their debt way sky high. So rather than use some of the CBI money to pay down the debt, they're not doing that. It's not going in the economy. And that is where I want the young people to be able to identify with that. So they could see when the CBI money, if the CBI money was used properly, the library would have already been repaired. So the young 10 and 15-year-old would have had access to a library. Okay? It means, therefore, they would have been able to do a playing field, nice playing field in Grand Bay or St. Joseph or Portsmouth.
To replace the stadium that was taken away from young people.
It means
young
that
people in
all
Roseau
the
don't
schools
have
in
a sporting
Dominica or
facility.
most of the schools would have computer labs. That's what it means. It means that the students who are now at what's the university, Midwestern, their tuition would be up to date. They would not have been in arrears for tuition. These are young people again. It means that the hospital would have had medicine. That's what the government's supposed to do. That's what they say in their budget, you know? So I mean, I know we are running against time.
Yeah, we have to wrap up. So let us do some closing remarks and not overindulge on our audience every week. But what we did was really bring it into perspective. And tonight, as part of Passportgate, I really wanted us to focus on the importance of reporting and accountability. Didi Easter says, with reference to the holders of passports by foreign nationals overrunning the population through the CBI scheme, should be of grave concern to all. And it is. It is of grave concern to all. You know, despite the safeguards that the framers of our Constitution provides against corruption, citizens often did not fully exercise their rights and expressed a clear rejection of corruption that negatively impact the country, thereby seeking to remove from office politicians involved in corruption. Basically, what she's saying is that the citizens have become numb to allegations of corruption. But it's not that. It's that we need some more leadership on the side that can hold the government accountable. We need a couple Dwyer Astafans in Dominica who can regularly provide insight that the average people can latch on. You're so busy making your life and your living that you need somebody to find the information. And that's what we did tonight. Alvin came with a lot of information and put to bed, I think, quite nicely a number of the arguments. You know, folks say, oh, the administration is doing a good job of governance. We just, but Dominica is unfortunate. We have a disproportionate share of natural disasters. From the numbers that Alvin read, it looks like Antigua is way up the Highland Dominica when it comes to natural
Yeah,
disaster and impact
yeah.
of natural disaster. So where's the excuse? You know, I mean, I'm going to allow you to make some closing remarks and let's wrap this up until you come back next time.
Well, Tony, let me again say thank you to our many folks who have stayed with us. Appreciate that. And as I said, that information is not just to belch out information, but to have a conversation and share with you, and and hopefully you could make an informed decision. And that informed decision is when those persons present themselves to you at the polls and say, vote for me because I can do X, Y, and Z. You could then go back and say, well, hey, I don't think you lived up to your promise, because here it was is. And all of the information that I provide you this evening, as I said, I always reference it. This is not stuff that I just pull at the top of my head. This information comes from reliable sources, the ECCB, the World Bank, the IMF, wherever that source happens to be. But I want to close on referencing to the 2022-2023 budget. I know it's a budget before the one that we currently have. And in the conclusion of that budget, because that was the last budget presented by the Honorable Prime Minister, the 23-24 was done by the new Minister of Finance, McIntyre. And here's what he says. Here's what he says. The government has determined that the foundation of our development will be the people of Dominica, ensuring access to quality healthcare, education, and opportunity. We're investing in the people of Dominica and building the country's social capital because this government's unwavering confidence and determination to achieve all that the Almighty has ordained for this nation and its citizens. And he goes on to say, and I'm referring from page 56, for those of you who may have access to it, page 56. And page 57, he goes on to identify a number of sectors. I will not read the entire thing.
Yeah, because I don't really want scary budget
the sectors
adjustment.
was the agricultural sector, the digital economy, the renewable energy transition, the tourism sector, the small business sector, and the resilience building. No mention of health. The health sector doesn't feature there, so you can be a sick nation as far as it's concerned. I will finally conclude by saying, Tony, it is time that we shift away from what I myself would define as imperialist control and colonialist and neocolonialism exploitation, which is what is happening with our passport. Okay? We experienced that in the past, and we experience it now in its current form. And as I said earlier in the discussion, our approach to a full independence is on the basis that our very own goals and aspirations and principles should be founded on we Dominicans, by way of our sovereignty and self-reliance. And if we keep holding on to this foreign model, the CBI, which we claim, if not CBI what, then we'll be missing up on our development. We'll be neglecting Dominicans, as it were. And we're likely to remain that way for the next 100 years. So again, thank you, my brother. I hope I was able to spur some conversation, whet the appetite of some folks. It is my hope that I'm sure you will get posting on your page again, disputing maybe some of the things that I may have presented here tonight. I'll be happy to challenge anyone that wants to come and have a conversation with me, a civil conversation, and to point out a different opinion or a different fact. I'll be happy to entertain that, because Facts are stubborn things. Facts don't lie. They just happen to be stubborn things. And sometimes we can't accept it or look at it straight in the eye. So thanks for that opportunity. And I look forward to having some further discussions as it relates to this CBI Passportgate fiasco.
Thank you so much, my brother, and thank you. After tonight, I don't think we'll ever get Karen Christian to even suggest he wants to come on the program, because I listen to some of the media that happens in Dominica, and yes, it's a boost. The level of discussion that we have on this week in interview is at a different level, and not that it's over anybody else's head. It's just that we set our standard to where we bring you good information and we bring it to you in a format that's digestible and a format to take action. And so, folks, that's why I like to have Alvin on, because he comes prepared. He comes with his documents, he comes with his references, and he makes his points with passion. And so I want you to take stock of what we said tonight. And in the promotion of tonight's show, I asked the question, 45 years after independence, 45 years of independence, are we being recolonized? And don't
Yes.
just take that question as a hype or whatever it is. It's a serious question. Is Dominica being recolonized in 2023, 45 years after our independence? And as Dwyer said, the colonization of our island can only take place with foreign exploiters and local traitors. The same people who like
Enablers.
to call people and say, "Oh, you're not patriotic because of this and you're that," but they are traitors because they are selling us back into colonization. I mean, mute your mic a little bit. Your papers are rustling. Huh?
I'm
So,
sorry.
so
I'm sorry.
no problem. The colonization that we're talking about, that's exactly what it is. When we were colonized by Europe, they came into our country. They took our land, our labor, and whatever. They sent all the benefits back to Europe and developed Europe, while Dominica and the other islands stayed back in poverty, in mud, in rain, in just destitution. We are seeing a similar scenario being played again, where this time is not sugarcane, it's not rum, it's not tobacco, it is our CBI, our sovereignty, that is being sold and used to colonize us. And there's a saying that says that the forest trusted the axe because it was mostly made of wood, and therefore they thought it was one of them. The forest trusted the axe because it was mostly made of wood, and therefore they thought it was one of them. Are we being colonized? And that colonization is being led from among us. And therefore, it's harder for us to recognize that we're being colonized. What do we owe to our ancestors who were enslaved, who were beaten, who were brutalized? And yet still they came out triumphant because they were able to win over this beautiful real estate. The Caribbean, without any kind of argument, is the best piece of real estate on planet Earth. Every once in a while, we get a little bit of hurricane, but we have perfect weather. We have sufficient rain. We have sufficient sun. We have fertile soil. We have really calming breeze that comes through and keeps us cool. It is arguably the best piece of real estate on the planet. And so our forefathers who were brought into slavery in that environment sacrificed their blood and their lives to win it for us, their descendants. And we, in good conscience or bad conscience, now are watching a few folks sell us back into colonization. That we should not let happen. The inheritance that we got from our parents, we should look to preserve it so that we can pass it on to our children, and our children can pass it on to our grandchildren. It doesn't belong to us. It's not ours to give away. But every day we watch foreigners come into Dominica and buy what we cannot afford to buy because we've been impoverished. We see foreigners come and they are given all of the employment. Every major project that takes place in Dominica is taken place by a foreigner. Or who is responsible for that? Let us assume that their argument is true, that we don't have the skill and the capacity to do those projects. Whose fault is that? If you've been in government for 20 years, it means that the folks who were in primary school and secondary school who are now part of the labor force, the same labor force that you're saying is not adequate to meet the needs of the country, you were responsible for educating them. You were responsible for giving them the skill. You're responsible for creating the capacity. But in 2023, we are having folks do the most basic laborer work, all the way up to the most skilled engineering work, all the way up. Every single position that these people have, they want to give it to a foreigner. So I think they should go ahead and just give the prime ministership to a foreigner. If Dominicans are not good enough to run the hospital, we're not good enough to run, all of these other institutions, maybe a foreigner would be better because we're certainly not getting the results that benefit the people. I was watching the video of Castle Bruce where they were showing how the roads were eroded and all this aggregate ended up in people's homes. And it's not to judge anybody. I'm looking at the conditions of the homes in Castle Bruce, my village, Castle Bruce, and I just want to weep because what you see suggests so much poverty. I grew up in Castlebrus in the 70s. I grew up to Castlebrus in the 70s. We didn't have much, but our surroundings, we had hedges. Our yard was clean. Our homes were clean. Our homes look different from the homes we had in our farms. Castlebrus just looked like a garden, and not like a beautiful botanical garden. I think that we need to take a look at that. I see photos of Roseau and the conditions of the sidewalk, the gutters, the streets is the same as when I was going to grammar school in 1978, 79, 80. The same, moss growing in the gutters, and the gutters are broken up, the sidewalk is broken up. There is no evidence of a country that has generated billions of dollars in the last 5, 6, 7 years. Folks, we need to demand accountability. We need to expect and demand reports from the government, explanations for all of those revelations that's been going on in the OCCR report. Alvin, I see you want to come and say something quickly?
Yeah, I just want to make a brief point, and I agree with what you've said. And when people talk about hurricane, we've been getting hurricanes in 1930. I mean, if you go back in history, you'll see how many hurricanes, and Dominica still was able to develop and do the things that we do as Dominicans, as self-reliant people. But under the CBI, the government CBI website, or the Ministry of Finance, where they have some information on that, the airport that they claim is going to be paid through CBI monies, and all of that is still up for the jury. They claimed 400 acres of land. You hear that number? Write that down. 400 acres of land. And out of that, they displaced 47 farmlands. 47 farmlands were displaced. My question is, would those farmlands be relocated elsewhere? What were on these farmlands? And Tony, you know the area. This is one of our most agriculture productive area. And it is not for the fact that the previous government had already identified somewhere for the international airport. Had done all the necessary impact assessment surveys. But just again to spite, as selfish as they are, those leaders, and you displace 47 farmlands. Agriculture we're talking about again. Were those farmers allocated elsewhere? Did we reallocate those 47 farmlands? I just thought I would make that point.
No, certainly. And somebody is sending me a message saying that, is there a Freedom of Information Act in Dominica? I think, Alvin, you addressed that last week.
No, there
Dominica
is
does
not.
not have
Dominica
a
does
freedom.
not. Matter of fact, it's only the Bahamas, Trinidad. I think there's one in Jamaica. St. Lucia started in Antigua. No legislation has been passed. So we do not have a Freedom of Information
Act. We don't.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And he said there should be watchdog organization that takes hold of people in power and government to account. Transparency and accountability is required for integrity and trust. That in a nutshell wraps up what you want to say. Transparency and accountability is required for integrity and trust. We should not trust anyone who is not accountable. We should not trust anyone who is not transparent. And we certainly have not had any accountability. We've not had any transparency. And that is why we are covering this and calling it Passportgate, because of the type of revelations that have been made. And it's not been made by Dominicans. I mean, Lennox and Angelo Allen and those people have been saying those things. But folks were able to get away by saying that it was politically motivated. Lennox want to get power, blah, 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 blah. These are reports that was done by international journalists and published in international publications. And the reports are very, very damning, to say the least. And so we are demanding a response, we're demanding accountability, and we want it from folks who are elected to represent the people, not some people who are carrying water for them and coming. As a matter of fact, a program I watched this week, before Sam Raphael started talking, he said, "Oh, by the way, I'm here in my own capacity. I'm not here as an official representative of the government or the CBI program. I just happen to be somebody who's familiar with the CBI program, so I come here to give my opinion." Then that's useless, because you don't owe accountability to anybody. Who we want to hear from are the people who are responsible to give account for the good governance, good stewardship, and the good management of the people's fund. So, folks, this has been it. Next week we will come back together.
One of your callers asked about accountability. The last one you asked. Let me just say for that caller, Section 10 of our Constitution,
okay,
provides for what is called a parliamentary commissioner, an ombudsman.
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution provides for the appointment of an ombudsman.
What section is that?
And the ombudsman, that has never been effected under our Constitution. Mm-hmm. And the role of the ombudsman is to investigate stuff like that. So you see the CBI and all this thing that's going on, where you find elected official might be doing one, zezi muzai. That's the role of the ombudsman.
But who appoints the ombudsman?
The president's supposed to. The president's supposed to appoint somebody. The Constitution allows for that.
Yeah. Okay. But we know how that goes, because the prime minister selects the president and the president selects whoever. So in effect, it will be the prime minister selecting the ombudsman. But some of those things we have to fix. But as citizens, we have the right to organize ourselves and to demand those types of accountability. Accountability is the word. Respect and for the folks that put you there, the folks whose sovereignty you are selling. So let us expect to receive an accounting and a reporting from the folks who are charged and are being paid to provide that accounting. And so, folks, I'm going to leave it there. I want to wish you a wonderful remainder of your week. I want to thank you very much for tuning in to this week in interview. We do this because we think if better is done in Dominica, Dominica can do better. Dominica has done better. And there are a lot of us who are out of Dominica who would love to go back to live in Dominica. But before we can do that, the conditions has to improve. Well, who has to improve the conditions? It's all of us. All of us have to be able to improve the conditions in Dominica so that it becomes a place where we can enjoy life. When we look at the conditions that we and the work conditions that we do in this part of the world, most of us are not miserable, we are comfortable. However, it doesn't compare to the quality of life that we have when we are in Dominica or we are in the Caribbean. And so why is it that we have to leave in order to be able to provide a life for ourselves and our family? We have to demand that the leaders do better. We have to provide a disincentive for misbehavior. We have to demand accountability. We have to expect accountability. It has to be the most natural thing in the world, accountability from our elected officials. I want to say thank you to I wouldn't even, at this stage, I wouldn't even call him a guest because Alvin is home people. My co-host, my co-guide, whatever you want to call him. But he comes with a lot of information, a lot of background, and we have this wonderful discussion. And I'm sure you learn a lot tonight. So thank you, Brother Alvin. He's also on Civic Vibes most Sunday afternoons on Q95. You can tune in. He's on there with Loftus. And they talk about similar things, but Loftus on the ground in Dominica. And so it's also a different perspective. I encourage you to tune into that. And so just if you are on TDN or any one of the other social media, just give us a like, give us some interaction. Our usual suspects and regulars, Didi, Easter, Sophie, Martha, and so on. I want to say thank you very much for did I say Q95? Civic not on Q95 anymore. It's on they're on their website on Civic Vibes Facebook page. That's where you'll find them, not on Q95, on the Facebook page. Thank you for that. You can catch Alvin there on a Sunday from I think it's from 6 to 8. So check him out. We're going to continue covering Passportgate. And we if you have ideas as to how we can move it forward to the next stage in terms of holding people accountable, they're quite welcome. Drop it on my Facebook page, direct message me, text me. Let's see what we can do with this information. We did not have the resources to do all the investigation. Somebody has done it for us. Let us not make it go to waste. We need to hold our government accountable. So, folks, let me say good night. Thank you to my team, my producers. They really go out of the way to make these topics interesting and to do some research and stuff like that. So thank you very much. And we'll do this again next week, Wednesday. If you're celebrating your birthday, happy birthday to you. Anniversaries, happy anniversary. Graduations, I know sometimes people graduate at all times because they are online learning. Congratulations to you. If you buried a loved one or you lost a loved one, or sincere condolences to you. And folks, just think about what we presented tonight. And let's do this again next week, Wednesday. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. It was such a pleasure to spend the 2 hours with you. Good night.